I didn't say a word when the HOA president accused my brother of trespassing during the special board hearing. Her voice was shaking, but not from fear, from the kind of performative outrage people use when they think they're untouchable. She was jabbing her finger toward the end of the table where the HOA's attorney sat, waiting for his cue to pounce. I didn't give them the satisfaction of reacting. Instead, I slid a single document across the polished oak surface, letting it land with the soft slap of heavy paper. The attorney leaned forward first. He scanned the page and his lips thinned to a single pale line. The president kept talking, but her words slowed as she realized no one was looking at her anymore. They were all staring at the gold-embossed federal seal on that document. She glanced down, eyes locking on the words United States Department of Justice and Federal Bureau of Investigation, and in that instant, she knew. That silence, that moment where her brain caught up to the consequences, was worth every sleepless night I'd spent preparing. But I'm getting ahead of myself. 3 years earlier, when I inherited my aunt's place, I thought I'd found the perfect setup. It was a modest 2-story home from the late 70s, tucked into the quietest corner of the subdivision. Unlike the newer builds with their identikit facades and manicured postage stamp lawns, my place had character: cedar siding that smelled like rain, a porch swing that creaked in the summer breeze, and a big backyard shaded by cottonwoods that dropped golden leaves every October. Beyond the fence, a narrow creek meandered through a strip of land technically owned by the HOA, but in practice left untouched. It was the kind of place where you could hear crickets at night and wake up to woodpeckers in the morning. I worked remotely, handling accounts for a small firm out of Denver. My days were predictable in the best way. Morning coffee on the porch, emails, a lunch break by the creek, and evenings tinkering with minor home repairs or losing myself in a paperback. I knew the HOA existed, of course, but they were just another line on my quarterly expenses. I had no interest in attending meetings, running for the board, or knowing who was president. As far as I was concerned, they handled the landscaping around the entrance sign and I minded my own business. That changed the week my brother came to visit. He'd been away for months, working long rotations out of state. We weren't the kind of siblings who talked every day. But when we did, it was easy to fall back into our old rhythm: sarcasm, shared memories, quiet understanding. He called me out of the blue one Tuesday, saying he had a rare week off and wanted to drive down. I didn't hesitate. "Guest room's yours," I said. He arrived on a Thursday afternoon, his dusty pickup rumbling into the driveway. We unloaded, his duffel bag and a cooler, then sat on the back porch with mugs of coffee, catching up as the light faded. That's when I noticed the white SUV creeping past the house. It slowed almost to a stop, the driver staring at us before continuing down the road. I brushed it off until half an hour later when I found a fluorescent orange notice taped to my front door. It read, "Notice of violation, unauthorized occupant." In block capitals, it cited Community Residency Rule 4.2 and stated that all overnight guests must be approved by the board at least 24 hours in advance. Failure to comply, it said, would result in daily administrative fines. The language was so officious it was almost funny, except it wasn't. I called the HOA office that same afternoon. The woman who answered spoke like she'd been chewing lemon rinds. "The rule is in your CC&Rs," she said. When I asked why anyone would need permission for family to visit, she sniffed. "For the safety of the community." The absurdity of that statement almost made me laugh, but her tone made it clear this was no joke. Over the next 2 days, the paper storm rolled in. First came a second notice, this one for unregistered vehicle, claiming my brother's truck was parked in violation of community parking compliance because it wasn't logged with the HOA. Then a third accusing me of failure to cooperate with HOA security. Each came with a fine. $150, then $250, then $200 more. I decided to play it straight at first. I sent the board a polite but firm email explaining that my brother was a temporary guest, that his vehicle was lawfully registered in another state, and that the CCNRs they were citing didn't actually grant them authority over who I allowed into my home. I even attached a copy of my property deed for good measure. No reply. Instead, on the fourth day, a man in a reflective vest showed up at my door with a clipboard announcing himself as the Community Safety Officer. He said the board had concerns about my brother's presence and that law enforcement may be contacted if the situation wasn't resolved. The phrasing was deliberate, vague enough to sound official, threatening enough to get under your skin. That was the moment my perspective shifted. I wasn't just dealing with overzealous rule enforcers. I was dealing with people who believed they had unchecked authority over my private life. So I stopped arguing and started building. I pulled the HOA's original articles of incorporation from the State Business Registry. I requested the subdivision's recorded plats from the county clerk's office. I read every municipal ordinance that touched on private governance, trespassing, and property rights. I also began keeping a log of every interaction. Time-stamped photos of notices, summaries of phone calls, even noting the make and model of vehicles I saw patrolling slowly past my house. The HOA made their big move a few nights later. It was just after sunset. My brother and I were inside watching a baseball game when two sets of red and blue lights flickered through the blinds. Two police cruisers rolled to a stop in front of my house. The knock on the door was brisk but not aggressive. When I opened, one of the officers explained they'd received a 911 call about a suspicious person staying at my address. I kept my expression neutral. "That's my younger brother," I said. "He's here for a short visit." They asked for his ID. He stood, handed it over without a word. The first officer glanced at it, and I saw the recognition flicker across his face. His tone shifted. Instantly, becoming measured, almost respectful. He handed it back, said there was no problem here, and the two of them left without further comment. The next morning, I sent the board a short email requesting a formal hearing to address the harassment and fines. I made no mention of what had just happened. I wanted them to walk into that room thinking they still held the upper hand. The hearing was held in the community hall, a long, narrow room with folding tables and the faint smell of burnt coffee. The board sat at one end, flanked by their attorney. The president opened with a list of alleged violations, her voice dripping with the smug satisfaction of someone who'd already decided the outcome. I waited until she finished. Then I reached into my folder and laid a single sheet of paper in front of their attorney. It was a federal memorandum issued under Title 18 U.S. Code, naming my brother as a special agent of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, currently on active duty under an operational assignment. Next to it, I placed a signed statement from the local police chief, confirming that the HOA's 911 call had resulted in the unwarranted detainment of a federal officer, a matter now under internal review. The attorney read it, then slowly set his pen down. The president glanced between us, realizing too late that her posturing had just walked her into the worst possible corner. I spoke quietly, but each word landed like a gavel. Any further harassment or fines will be treated as interference with a federal officer. I suggest you close this matter immediately. Within a week, all fines were rescinded as a courtesy. The violation records vanished. 2 board members resigned. The president stayed on, but I noticed she avoided me in public. And when she did glance my way, it was with the tight-lipped look of someone still nursing a bruise. Life returned to normal. My brother went back to his post, and I went back to my quiet days by the creek. But the balance had shifted. The HOA still existed, but their power, at least over me, was gone. Now, when I walk past the office, they sometimes wave, sometimes don't. Either way, it's quiet again. And that's all I ever wanted.